Hello and welcome to Valley View School District's Park Performance-Based Assessment presentation. This presentation will review important information, dates, and goals of VVSD's Park Test Administration. To begin, let's review this presentation's learning intentions. By the end of this training, participants should be able to understand the general features of Park's performance-based assessment. In addition, participants should be able to identify different staff's roles in the administration of the Park assessment. Finally, we hope that, as a result of this training, teachers and staff are better able to assist in the administration of computer-based tests. Before discussing the specifics of the Park assessment, it is important to understand what the goal or big picture for the assessment will be in the coming years. As many already know, the Park assessment is a state-mandated standardized test in Illinois. It is replacing the ISAT and PSAE tests. For the 2014-2015 school year, Park will be testing VVSD students in academic grades 3 through 9. In the future, the Park assessment will expand to assess more students. In addition, for the 2014-2015 school year, the Park assessment will be administered only in the spring, similar to traditional state tests. However, in the future, Park is anticipated to expand to 4 testing sessions that will occur over the course of an entire school year. The performance-based assessment, which will take place in early March, is made up of 5 testing units. The goal of the performance-based assessment is to not only test the students to see if they can choose correct answers, but also test to see how the students arrive to the answers they choose. As such, questions on the performance-based assessment are designed to assess student performance. Because of the complex aim of the performance-based assessment, the test takes longer to administer and score. A special note about grades 3 through 5. These grades will not be authorized to use a calculator on any part of the Park performance-based assessment. Focusing on the performance-based assessment, the assessment has a unique structure when compared to traditional state tests. The performance-based assessment is a battery of English language arts and math assessments. 3 units in the PBA are English language arts that will test the student's ability to read and write. In addition to the English language arts units, the performance-based assessment includes 2 units of math assessments. When considering both the performance-based assessment and the end-of-year assessment, students will be participating in approximately 7.5 hours of testing per student. Though many teachers are experienced with traditional state testing cycles, it is important to remember that Park assessments will differ in many ways, including the way the tests are administered. In the past, the state tested groups of students by academic grade level. When a state testing cycle arrived, the regular instructional day of a school completely shut down, and all students and staff were focused on testing. Park, however, will look slightly different. Where in the past state tests grouped all students by grade level and tested all students at once, Park will focus on individual classrooms at the grade school and individual courses at the high school levels. In addition, as Park assessments are administered, many students will be able to complete a normal instructional day. Because the Park assessment is computer-based, many students who are testing will be in computer labs as their peers continue regular classroom instruction elsewhere in the building. Computer-based Park test administration does not necessitate that a school cease regular classroom instruction to test all students at once. Now that we know some of the differences between Park and traditional state tests, let's take a look at a typical Park schedule. Generally, a testing location should be able to complete 2 sessions per day. Computer-based Park assessments are administered over windows of time which are made up of multiple weeks. Valley View estimates that most schools will need 19 or 20 days for all students to complete the performance-based assessment. Over this testing window, each student will be responsible for 5 units of testing. Not all students will be tested at the same time across the entire school. On the actual days of Park testing, there are specific guidelines for the way students are grouped and the session locations or rooms are organized. Specifically, Students in the same testing session must be both in the same academic grade and completing the same unit of assessment. Traditionally in the past, students could be pushed into open seats to continue testing. However, with PARCC, students who are in a testing session together must all be completing the same unit of assessment. To address these requirements, VVSD has developed a system around assessment session locations and student group codes to make this process simpler. Essentially, these codes take into consideration courses, sections, and student accommodations to group students in ways that allow testing to take place as smoothly as possible. Considering the PARCC assessment cycle will be expanding in future years, it is important to look at the process of organizing students for PARCC. Teachers have a high level of input when it comes to organizing students for the tests. Earlier in the year, teachers were asked to create personal needs profiles, or PNPs, on their students. These PNPs then led to the grouping of students per accommodations. Once students were grouped, assessment session locations were assigned along with unique group IDs. These IDs allowed school administrators to build test schedules that were specific to their building. From those schedules, test sessions are created in the PARCC system. These sessions allow for tickets to be printed, which will then be provided to students to log into the assessment. On the topic of scheduling, there are a number of materials classroom teachers will receive to provide a better picture of how the PARCC assessments will occur locally. Teachers will be provided access to the school test schedule, allowing staff to see who is testing as well as when and where they will be testing. In addition, teachers will receive class rosters that will show which groups their students will be testing with. Due to accommodations as per the students' personal needs profiles, some students may test with other groups to receive PARCC assessment accommodations. Here is an example of a class roster. Teachers will be provided with an entire list of students in their class, but in some instances, students will be testing with groups outside of their general class, depending on the accommodations students will receive. In the example on this slide, this teacher's class is divided into two groups. There is a general class group who will test together. However, 4 students in this class will instead be testing with small group E31. This group may test at a different time or location, depending on the accommodation and size of their group. Keeping that small group in mind, what does it mean when a teacher sees their students have been assigned to E31? Though very small, the number E31 provides valuable information for teachers and school test coordinators. In this specific example, each character of the code represents something specific. The E in E31 refers to the subject, English. The 3 represents the grade level. In this instance, these students are in the 3rd grade. Finally, the 1 refers to the small group number. There may be multiple small English testing groups at the 3rd grade level, so that last number tells you which group or cohort those students will test with. Additional examples and explanations of the code are provided on this slide. With that information in mind, we can see clearly which students are being tested in a small group setting and which are being tested with their general classroom. After students have completed the bulk of initial testing, there will be a window of time allocated for makeup testing. The non-negotiable deadline for completing makeup testing is April 2nd, 2015. However, PARCC has specific guidelines for completing makeup tests. Officially from PARCC, schools can only administer 1 grade and 1 unit per test session at a time. By PARCC's rules, schools would not be able to have a lab full of students testing different units in grade level assessments. Depending on the number of students requiring makeup tests, completing all of the tests may be challenging. In the past, multiple students could be tested together, making up a variety of different tests and units. However, PARCC does not allow schools to add students to open seats in computer labs. Above all, the priority is to ensure all students have been tested by April 2nd. It is the responsibility of all school staff, school testing coordinators, teachers, proctors, and the like, to ensure all students have been tested by the April 2nd deadline. On the topic of it being all staff's responsibility to see the students are tested, it is important to briefly overview different staff and their roles during testing. Most of the staff will break into 4 categories. Technology specialists are temporary employees who are assisting in the administration of the PARCC assessment. They will have a variety of responsibilities, including the preparation of testing locations and testing sessions. In this role, technology specialists will be responsible for printing tickets, seal codes, and preparing rooms in technology for testing. In addition, they will be monitoring student progress electronically to see who is testing and who may need assistance. In the event of technology errors, such as network connectivity issues and hardware failure, technology specialists will be the first line of addressing problems with the computer-based nature of the test itself. School administrators will work to create testing schedules. In addition, they are primarily responsible for ensuring schools follow test security protocols. They will also be responsible for ensuring all students have tested. Special education and ESL teachers will be primarily responsible for administering small group testing sessions. They will understand the basic functions of electronic test administration. In addition, they will be responsible for implementing student accommodations and basic technical troubleshooting. Should significant issues arise, special education and ESL teachers may pull technology specialists temporarily to help with solving these issues. Finally, classroom teachers will be primarily responsible for reading scripted instructions from the test administrator manual. In addition, they must ensure students are seated in a way that is conducive to standardized testing. On the day of the assessments, classroom teachers will be ensuring students are on task. They will also be asked to assist other staff in any way possible during test administration. According to PARCC's testing manuals, there are 3 identified roles that testing staff can perform. PARCC's roles are test administrator, school test coordinator, and test proctor. As this is Valley View's first experience with computer-based state testing, the decision was made to hire technology specialists to oversee the administration of the PARCC assessment. These technology specialists will be performing a variety of roles that PARCC delegates to test administrators, school test coordinators, and test proctors. The majority of the technical tasks will be performed by these technology specialists. When issues arise, these technology specialists will provide technical support for the special education and ESL teachers administering small group tests. An important note: these technology specialists are temporary out-of-district employees whose primary focus will be organizing testing sessions and locations. These professionals are not to be confused with VVSD's existing technology or IT professionals. Now that we know what the test looks like in overview and what various staff's roles will be, let's look at how testing sessions will break down. Test session times will vary depending on the unit. However, 5 minutes of scheduled testing time is reserved for passing out testing materials like student testing tickets, scratch paper, and mathematics guides when needed. 10 minutes has been allocated for the reading of scripted instructions for each testing unit. Finally, between 5 and 15 minutes are allocated at the end of each unit for the collection of materials, closing directions, and the like. In order to ensure teachers are prepared to administer the PARCC assessment, it is important to review basic testing protocols. In terms of materials, because of the nature of the computerized tests, many of the materials will be provided to students on the day of testing. Blank scratch paper will be provided by testing staff, and when calculators are used for an assessment, they are usually accessible through the testing software itself. At some grade levels, specifically 8th grade and high school, PARCC-approved handheld calculators are an option. Be sure to check for testing signage by the doors. Headphones will be provided for each student. The printing of seal codes and student testing tickets will be the responsibility of technology specialists. When appropriate, seal codes should be written on the board and tickets should be distributed to students. In addition to standard testing materials, math reference sheets will be provided to students in grades 5 through 8. These sheets are physical paper references and must be collected upon the completion of testing units. Notice reference sheets will not be allowed for grades 3 and 4. There are a number of materials that PARCC will provide students. Rulers will be provided by PARCC for students in grades 3 through 8. Protractors will be provided by PARCC for grades 4 through 7 as well. For grade 8, a protractor may be provided by the school. At the 9th grade level, rulers and protractors may be provided by the school. When considering the math assessments, it's helpful to review PARCC's calculator policy. In grades 3 through 5, calculators will not be allowed except for students with specific calculator accommodations. In grades 6 and 7, calculators will be standard 4-function calculators with square root and percentage functions. In grade 8, students will have access to scientific calculators. At the high school level, students will have access to graphing calculators that have features consistent with TI-84 calculators. Tablets, laptops, phones, and other outside technology will not be allowed during the PARCC assessment, even to use calculator functions. During testing sessions, students are not allowed to share calculators with one another. There are a number of PARCC testing protocols to address the testing room itself. During PARCC assessment sessions, coats, book bags, and purses must not be on the testing table or desk. There mustn't be any instructional displays on the walls of a testing room. During testing sessions, there cannot be PA announcements that may disrupt testing. In addition, as per PARCC, neither students nor staff are authorized to use electronic devices other than those specifically designated for testing. PARCC specifically prohibits the use of e-book readers, phones, tablets, computers, and media players for students and staff. In addition, food and beverages are explicitly prohibited for students and staff unless explicitly detailed in an individualized education plan or 504 plan. Students may bring leisure reading, like novels, to use after the completion of a test unit. Once they have completed a testing unit, they may read a physical free reading book or novel as long as it is under their desk. Again, students may not use electronic e-book readers or tablets in the testing room at any time. When individual students finish with their testing sessions, there are 3 options a school has to choose from. Testing staff may choose to have students sit quietly at their desks or testing stations, waiting patiently for their peers to complete testing. Another option would be to allow the students to perform a silent task. For example, as per Illinois' direction in the appendix of the PARCC Test Administrator Manual, schools do have the option to allow their students to read silently after a testing session. Finally, schools may also choose to dismiss individual children or groups of children at an appropriate time. Ultimately, the decision is the school's to make. Finally, the preferable seating arrangement would be for students to be arranged in rows and columns except for small groups. Teachers and technology specialists should ensure testing times are written on a whiteboard. Restroom breaks are allowed as needed, but the students must be escorted by the teacher and be in the presence of a teacher at all times except when they are physically in the restroom. During testing, hallways must be quiet and testing staff must hang a Do Not Disturb sign on the door during testing sessions. For more detailed descriptions of testing protocols, security procedures, and the like, please refer to the PARCC Test Administrator Manual. Please refer also to VVSD's PARCC Resources website for further clarification. It is our genuine hope that this video has cleared up some confusion or questions you may have had regarding VVSD's PARCC Test administration. The PARCC assessment has many other districts confused or frustrated to the point in which they are exhibiting unusual behavior, as evidenced by the following clips.
PARCC, I think's your name. Hello, is this the new test we're looking for?
I practice on my brain, and that's what we all say. That's what we all say.
About that park, no TCAP. It's all about that park, no TCAP.
Now that we are back from that quick break, there are a number of steps VVSD teachers are still encouraged to take before the PARCC performance-based testing window opens. Review the PARCC Test Administration Manual for your grade level for additional, more detailed instructions. Full manuals can be found on VVSD's PARCC Resources website, which is linked at the bottom of this page. Before the testing begins, all PARCC testing staff must review and sign the PARCC Test Security Agreement. Also, look out for your building's detailed test schedules and class rosters. It is strongly recommended that you also review the TestNav tutorial with your students the day before their first day of testing. Because online tests are a relatively new concept for some students, the layout of the online test can be challenging for students the first time they experience it. Providing students time to preview the test format could alleviate some of the stress that comes along with standardized tests. We have two final videos to help teachers understand what testing will look like on the day of. One video will be a Student Test Nav 8 tutorial that will give a quick overview of what the students will see when they are taking their computer-based tests. The other video will walk through the Pearson Access Next software, which is the program technology specialists and small group test administrators will use to begin tests and monitor student progress. This video is intended to demonstrate what the students will be seeing when they take the computerized PARCC test in a few weeks. What we have before us right now is the Grade 8 ELA Literacy Student Test Nav test. Basically, this is what the students will see when they're taking the test on the computer. It's a language arts test, so on the left side you have your text that they would be reading, and then on the right side you'll have some questions for them to answer. However, there's other things that this test offers that the students should be familiarized with. This section up here is our basic accommodations for the test. We have everything from a piece of scratch paper, a virtual scratch paper scratch pad for the students to make notes as needed. But then in addition to that, we have answer eliminators right here. So if they are trying to use process of elimination and narrow their answers down, they can make those notes that they would normally be able to make on a paper test. In addition to that, on this right side here, depending on the accommodations that have been authorized by PARCC, you will have other accommodations that they could use here. For example, a line magnifier so they can read lines more focused. And in addition, there will be a line reader that they can manipulate and change the size of it, and also be able to look at only one line at a time. When we look at the math tests, and for this example I have a grade 5 mathematics performance-based assessment test, a lot of the layout is similar to that of the English language arts layout, with a few subtle differences. For one, up here we have other accommodations that PARCC is providing students for the computer-based test. We have an 8-inch ruler that we'd be able to use on questions that require measurement, but we also have a protractor. And these protractors and rulers are able to be manipulated in a variety of different ways. We have, again, scratch paper that the students could write on virtually. Over here, we still have our magnifier, and we also have our line reader should the students need it. But then finally, in this tab over here on the math test, we have something that says exhibits, and if a student is to click on that, it'll bring up the reference sheet. But of course, the students will also have physical reference sheets if they need them. So it'll provide them certain things like mile to feet conversions, mile to yard conversions, pound to ounces conversions, and then rectangular prism looks like volume formulas below, cups, pints, quarts, gallons, and such. So these are just a few of the basic accommodations that students will have and what their dashboard will basically look like as they are completing the test. I hope this video is somewhat informative or helpful to you, and if you have any other questions, feel free to visit PARCC's website where you can experiment and play around with these tests on your own as well. Before viewing this video, I wanted to share a quick important note. This tutorial will show an example of a test session. The test session shown is a grade 10 English test. Grade 10 was used as an example so as to not confuse field technicians who were completing infrastructure trials at the time of the original recording. The point is, only grades 3 through 9 will be tested for the 2014-2015 school year. Grade 10 will not participate in PARCC assessments for the 2014-2015 school year. Hello and welcome to yet another PARCC test tutorial video brought to you by Valley View School District. The purpose of this video is to give teachers and certified staff a general overview of how PARCC will look from a technology specialist perspective. Because the PARCC assessment is computer-based, there are unique elements to the test that will be beneficial for teachers and staff to understand so they can better assist with the administration of the PARCC test. For example, PARCC test administrators will have access to the Pearson Access Next dashboard, which will allow them to monitor student statuses, potential problems, and general progress in the tests. This video is intended to give a basic overview of the software that will be used to monitor students' progress on the day in which PARCC tests are completed. Student statuses and test sessions will be managed through Pearson's Pearson Access Next software, which can be accessed through the website pearsonaccessnext.com. A quick note: when training with the Pearson Access Next software, you must be sure that you are using the Pearson Access Next training site. You will know you are using the Pearson Access Next training site if the theme of the website is brown. On the actual day of PARCC assessments, the Pearson Access Next website will have a blue theme. The blue theme will alert test administrators that all actions taken on these tests are final, and the results will be then submitted to PARCC for analysis. To get started with the Pearson Access Next software, you first need to sign in. Once you click the green Sign In button, you will be brought to a sign-in prompt. There you must enter your username and password in order to continue with the software. Upon signing in, you will be brought to a dashboard, which from this view has three categories: Setup, Testing, and Reports. Setup and reports may not be visible for teachers or test administrators on the day of the assessment. Most of the work that we will be doing for the PARCC assessments will be done in the testing area. So, from the testing area, we're going to go to Students and Sessions. Now we are at the Students in Sessions overview view. This is the view that the test administrators will see on the day of the test. When the students are brought to the computer labs, this is what the technology specialist is going to have on the screen before them. From this area, they're going to be able to authorize the students to start the tests. They will be able to check the status of the students as they're taking the tests. They'll be able to see who's active in the test, who's already completed it, and who is exiting it early. What you can see right off the bat is that I have one test session here on the left side. I have Romeoville High School English Grade 10 to my name. Down below, if we were to scroll down, we would see all the students who are enrolled in this particular test session. I have 10, and their names, new student, are all listed right down here, as is their student ID numbers here on the left side. They're all enrolled in the same session, and as we can see from the student test status bars, they are all ready, which means they're ready for me to start their test for them. If the students were in the lab ready to go, I could hit this green start button, they can enter their codes, and they would be able to start the test at this point. You would be able to see which students are working and which would need help by the status symbols here at the top. What's nice about the PARCC assessment and its layout, its interface, is that it has these different color-coded symbols to tell you what the status of the student is. When they're gray, they're ready to go and begin their tests. All of my students are currently ready to go. When they are currently working on the tests, they will be green. That means they're reading and answering questions, and they're doing what they're supposed to be doing on the tests. If a computer crashes or a student exits the test prematurely, they will have a red status. That will give the teachers and the test administrators a heads up that they need to go check on those students and see what is the problem. From there, the teachers will be able to resume their tests, which is again like a ready status, but resumed means they had already started, it's ready to start again. So they will have yellow, so that means that the student is then being waited on to begin the test again. And then, of course, when students complete the tests, they will have blue statuses. That means that they can no longer submit answers and they are completely done with the test at this point, or at least this section of the test at this point. Basically, the teacher's primary role will be working with the test administrators to look at the statuses of the students. If there are any red statuses, test administrators and teachers should then be talking to these students to see why is the test exited, is there a computer problem, and then troubleshooting from there. Most of your students will have green active statuses. Some will stay gray ready forever. For example, if a student is absent for the day, they will never be an active test taker since they're not there to authorize the sessions themselves. Therefore, they will be gray the entire time. To illustrate what the student statuses will look like on the day of the test, I have included this screenshot. This is an overview of the student testing dashboard that your technology specialists will be seeing on the day of the test. At a glance, I can look to the top bar to see the testing status of my class. According to the bar, I have 2 gray students, 2 green students, and 1 red student. As a teacher, I know my 2 gray students are nearly ready to begin the test, my 2 green students are currently working on the test, and my 1 red student needs my immediate attention. Looking below, I can see which specific students need help by the test status indicators by their names. I can see students 2 and 5 are working, students 1 and 3 are ready, and student 4 has exited their test. My role as a teacher is to assist the technology specialist by investigating why student 4 has exited the test. The test may have been exited by mistake, computer failure, or network connectivity issues. After investigating, the technology specialist would be able to resume the student's test, changing student 4's status from red to yellow, and when the student continues the test on their end, their status would move from yellow to green. The last elements I would like to demonstrate today are the student tickets and seal codes. First, student testing tickets will need to be distributed to students after they arrive to the computer lab on the day of the test. The sheet being projected on the screen is made up of multiple testing tickets. This sheet would be able to be cut into slips to then be given to students. These slips list important information the students need to complete the test. These slips include the students' names and dates of birth. In addition, the slips have specific login usernames and passwords for each student. These login credentials will give students access to their own PARCC account that will record their individual answers. Finally, these student testing tickets will include a URL or web address that will take users to the PARCC testing site. On the day of the assessment, the computers would ideally display the website and login prompts before the students arrive. However, in the instance of computer crashes, network connectivity issues, and the like, it is helpful to know that the testing website address is printed on each student ticket. From a teacher perspective, it's good to know about these student testing tickets because the technology specialists will need the teacher's help to distribute these tickets to the students on the day of the test. In addition to testing tickets, teachers should know about seal codes. When you think back on traditional pencil and paper state achievement tests, we all fondly remember using our pencils to tear paper seals that secured each testing section. The intended purpose of these seals was to prevent students from jumping ahead in the test. This measure ensured that the time given to each student was standardized. Seal codes work in a similar way. Students will need to enter these codes in order to virtually tear the seal to the next section of their tests. As such, it is important to know each test session has seal codes associated with it. It is also important to know that these seal codes should only be given to students when they need authorization to begin a test. Writing all of the seal codes on the board at one time, for example, would be giving the students access to all sessions of the tests before they may necessarily need that access. As such, it is helpful for teachers to know the function of these seal codes so they can better assist the technology specialists in maintaining a secure testing environment. One last important note. In the event testing tickets or seal codes are lost or destroyed and need to be reprinted, Technology specialists will be able to reprint these documents from the Students in Sessions overview. This concludes this Pearson Access Next overview. Should you have any additional questions about the dashboard, please contact a peer or your school test coordinator. Thank you.